Welcome to Hired in IT. Our mission is simple: help you build the skills that employers actually want. Whether you're trying to land your first IT job, switch careers, earn a promotion, or increase your salary, we're here to help. Every video is thoroughly researched and designed to make complex IT topics easy to understand. If there's an IT topic you'd like us to cover, leave a comment below. We may turn your suggestion into our next video. Turning IT knowledge into career opportunities. A former IT administrator at a mid-sized company logs in from his home office at 2 a.m. Even though he was terminated 6 months ago, his privileged domain account was never disabled. He opens SQL Server Management Studio and types a single command. Within seconds, the entire customer database, every order, every contact, 5 years of business data, is gone. The company discovers the breach the next morning when customers call saying their orders vanished. By then, the backups are also compromised. This isn't a hypothetical. It's a failure of one single security principle that we're going to master in this video. By the end of this video, you'll have 3 concrete takeaways. First, what the principle of least privilege actually means. Not a textbook definition, but the real-world security control it represents. Second, why it's the single most effective defense against insider threats, ransomware, and lateral movement. And third, one simple action you can take this week, even in a home lab, to start locking down access. The principle of least privilege, or PoLP, states that every user, application, process, and device should get exactly the permissions it needs to perform its legitimate function, and nothing more. That means your daily user account should not have administrator rights. A web server process should not have access to the database admin console. A third-party IoT sensor should not be able to browse your file shares. This isn't just about people. It applies to service accounts, accounts used by applications, not people, serverless functions, cloud code that runs on demand, and any non-human identity that can request access. Think of an office building. The janitor has a keyring, but it only opens the storage closet and the cleaning supply room. He does not have a key to the CEO's office, the HR file room, or the server room. If someone steals his keys, the damage is limited to a few cleaning supplies. That's least privilege in the physical world. Now apply that same logic to your digital environment. Each user, app, and service gets only the keys it truly needs. If one gets compromised, the blast radius is tiny. Let's look at a reality check. In many organizations, a large number of user accounts have local administrator rights, often because it's easier to give everyone the same image. But when you audit who actually needs those rights to do their job, the number is far lower. That gap is your attack surface. Every unnecessary admin account is a potential doorway for an attacker. Over-provisioning is the exact opposite of least privilege. Quick pop quiz. What is the core concept of the principle of least privilege? Pause if you need a moment. The answer: you grant users, processes, and systems only the minimum access necessary to perform their authorized functions, and nothing more. That foundational idea is what we've been building on. Here's the power of least privilege visualized. Without PoLP, a single compromised user account can lead to admin privileges, lateral movement, moving from one compromised machine to another inside the network, and ultimately full encryption of all file shares. That's the attack chain we've seen in countless ransomware incidents. Now apply least privilege. that same compromised account has only standard user rights. The attacker can't pivot, can't reach sensitive data, and can't encrypt anything beyond that user's own files. The attack surface shrinks instantly from a company-wide catastrophe to a contained incident. Ransomware often starts with a phishing email that compromises a user. The damage then depends on that user's privileges. If that user holds broad administrative rights, the attacker may be able to move laterally to critical systems, potentially encrypting shared data across the organization. With least privilege enforced, even if a user clicks a malicious link, the malware can only access that user's personal folders. It can't install, it can't spread, and it can't encrypt the shared drives. That's the difference between a minor cleanup and a multi-million-dollar recovery. Now let's return to our opening scenario. That former IT admin with lingering access. If least privilege had been implemented, his account would have been scoped to his old role. Maybe read-only access to a few reports, certainly not the ability to drop production databases. A simple disablement on termination would have been the first line. But even if that was missed, least privilege would have made the damage impossible. Insider threats, both malicious and accidental, become containable. It's the ultimate safety net. The 2013 Target breach is the textbook example of third-party risk. Attackers stole credentials from a heating and ventilation vendor who had excessive network access. Once inside, they pivoted to the point-of-sale systems and captured millions of credit card numbers. If least privilege had been applied, that vendor's access would have been firewalled to only the HVAC controllers. No lateral movement, no POS compromise. That's why today, zero-trust architectures and vendor risk management mandates are built on this foundation. Never give more access than absolutely necessary. Recall the ransomware example from earlier, where one click encrypted the entire shared drive. Now ask yourself, if that employee's account had been locked down with least privilege, no local admin rights, how would the outcome change? Pause if you need a moment. The answer: without admin privileges, the malware would likely be limited to encrypting only files that user owned, their own local documents. The shared drive and everyone else's data would be off limits. That's the power of limiting the blast radius. Least privilege turns the disaster into a contained incident. Privilege bracketing means you start with just enough rights to run your app, temporarily grab admin power for one specific task, like installing a patch, and then let go immediately. This slashes the window of vulnerability from months to seconds. On Linux, sudo elevates only for that single command, then drops back to your standard privileges. On Windows, run as administrator launches a separate process with full rights. It's riskier if you forget to close it, so use it sparingly and only for the exact action needed. Just-in-time access flips the script. No one walks around with admin keys in their pocket all day. Instead, you request a temporary elevation. It's approved for a set window, say 2 hours, to run that backup script, and then the permissions evaporate. Cloud services like AWS IAM roles and Azure Privileged Identity Management offer built-in time-bound access controls. Careful configuration is needed to avoid gaps. Many teams use third-party tools for added streamlining. Every step is logged for audit. Least privilege keeps one person's access tiny. It's about limiting what any single account can do. Separation of duties, on the other hand, splits sensitive tasks so no single person can complete them alone. For instance, one employee requests a purchase order, another approves it. Both controls work together. PoLP shrinks the risk. SOD requires a second set of eyes to pull the trigger. Here's where beginners often trip up. Least privilege is about actions. Can you delete, modify, execute? Need to know is about data visibility. Can you even see the content? A customer support rep needs to view a customer's record. That's need to know. But they absolutely shouldn't be able to delete it. That's least privilege on actions. Both are essential, and they work side by side. Think about a scenario a real company would implement. The DBA can only kick off a backup script by requesting access that vanishes after 1 hour. Pause and ask yourself, which least privilege technique is baked into this flow? It's just-in-time access, because the permission is time-bound and auto-expires. That simple mechanism eliminates standing admin access. Least privilege isn't just a cloud concept. It's baked into the Linux file system. The command chmod 640 financials CSV sets permissions so the owner can read and write. The group finance can read only, and everyone else gets nothing. A service account in the finance group can read the file, but a rogue web app process with no group membership is completely locked out. That's least privilege at the file level. Now, let's see how least privilege looks in the IAM console. Imagine you need to give an application read-only access to a log bucket. You'd create a policy that allows only the s3.getObject action on that bucket's ARN. Attach it to a user or role, and that identity can retrieve objects. But if it tries to delete or upload, IAM's default deny kicks in. No explicit deny rule is needed. The lack of permission is enough. This is the simplest example of a least privilege policy, and it's exactly what cloud security engineers design every day. Here's the trap almost every new cloud engineer falls into: slapping on an IAM policy with action, star, and resource, star, or making everyone a local admin just in case. It's convenient, sure, but it completely unravels least privilege. The rule is simple. If you're typing an asterisk, pause and ask yourself, do I really mean everything? If you're worried that locking down privileges will swamp the help desk with I can't do my job calls, consider the reality. When least privilege is paired with just-in-time elevation, users get the access they need exactly when they need it, and they stop accidentally breaking things. Security and productivity, working together. Let's put your IAM and least privilege knowledge to the test. Look at this policy. What's wrong, and how would you fix it? The problem is that the wildcard grants every S3 action, including delete and write, which far exceeds simple log reading. To fix it, you'd replace the action with a specific read-only operation like s3.getObject and scope the resource to that exact log bucket's ARN. That way, even if this developer's credentials are stolen, the attacker can't delete or overwrite anything. Zero trust architectures like the one in NIST SP 800-207 live by one rule: never trust, always verify. But verify what exactly? That's where least privilege comes in. It answers the question by making sure that even after a user or device is verified, they get only the bare minimum permissions needed for that specific request. Nothing more. Think of zero trust as the philosophy and least privilege as the enforcement muscle that actually carries it out. Least privilege isn't just a good idea. It's a fundamental principle in major compliance frameworks. For example, both PCI DSS and HIPAA enforce strict access controls that align with PoLP. PCI DSS restricts who can see payment data, while HIPAA's minimum necessary standard ensures only authorized healthcare professionals view patient records. Understanding these connections turns a security concept into a career advantage, especially for GRC roles. You can't enforce least privilege if you don't know who has access today. Start with built-in commands. On Windows, NetUser shows all local accounts. On Linux, get and passwd does the same. From there, audit their group memberships. That raw visibility is step 1. And here's what keeps security teams up at night. Most advanced attacks rely on exploiting privileged credentials, according to CyberArk. Attackers don't need sophisticated 0 days if they can just log in as an over-permissioned admin. Least privilege directly counteracts that by limiting what a stolen account can do. It's the control that neutralizes the most common attack pattern. Now, let's get practical. Here's your least privilege starter kit. 4 actions you can take this week, no enterprise budget needed. First, strip local admin rights from your own daily driver account. Second, create a separate admin account and only use run AS when you actually need elevation. Third, log into the AWS free tier. Create an IAM user that can only read objects from one bucket and test that it cannot delete. And fourth, queue up the next video to see how all this plugs into zero trust. Pause and think. You're designing a monitoring pod. What's the minimum Kubernetes RBAC permission it should have? The answer: only get and list verbs on pods. No create, no delete, no access to secrets. That's least privilege applied to a microservice. One last checkpoint: a real-world design scenario. You're building a reporting service. It needs to read one database table and write a results file to a shared folder. What access does least privilege demand? The answer: read-only access to that table and write-only access to that folder. No delete, no drop, no access to any other data. That's PoLP at every layer. Let's lock in the big picture. First, least privilege is exactly that. Permissions scoped to the bare minimum, whether it's a person, a service, or a device. Second, it's your strongest defense against the threats we've covered tonight, because when a bad actor grabs one set of credentials, there's nothing for them to escalate into. Third, don't wait for a perfect enterprise rollout. Start with your own machine, a home lab, or a free cloud tier. Those small wins build the habit. Before the next video, open your system's user list and audit your own administrative accounts. Chances are you'll find permissions that are too broad. That's a real-world exercise in least privilege right now. Subscribe and hit the bell for the next one. Zero Trust Explained. Never trust, always verify. You now have the foundational principle. Next, we'll build on it to design a system where nothing is trusted by default. You're gaining real, career-level security knowledge. Keep going. Remember, careers aren't built by watching videos. They're built by applying what you learn. Pick one thing from today's lesson, build it, document it, and share it. That's how you get hired. Thanks for watching Hired in IT, where we're turning IT knowledge into career opportunities.